Southeast Asia's digital economy is experiencing a period of rapid growth. According to the latest Economy Southeast Asia 2021 report from Google, Temasek, and Bain and Company, the extraordinary shift in consumer has led to the rise of the digital merchants. There is a significant opportunity for established players and newcomers to serve unbanked and underbanked consumers. This panel will discuss how the financial services industry can be better building their business growth and transformation journey in 2022, or in this case, in the never normal period of the world, it with or without tech options. Our first distinguished guest of the power panel concurrently manages a network of related digital companies in the Gongwei Gokongwei group of companies. One of those companies that Jojo Malolos leads is President and Chief Executive Officer of GOtyme Bank, one of the only 6 banks which granted a banking license in the Philippines. Prior to Gokongwei Group, Jojo was the CEO of Wing Cambodia, a pioneering mobile financial institution that has successfully brought unbanked to Cambodia's mainstream financial industry. That's quite an achievement. Our second guest of this panel discussion is Muhammad Suhail Amar Suresh. Suhail is currently the Technology Officer for Maybank, largest financial service in Malaysia and the 4th largest in ASEAN by asset size. Suhail formulates technology strategies and leads digital transformation across the Maybank group. Our third guest is Saify Akhtar. As Pertama Digital's Director of Strategy, Saify is rapidly build an Islamic digital bank for the financially underserved in Malaysia. Saify is a dynamic entrepreneur in building and growing tech companies nationally. Also a 2-time Gold Award winner from the UK Department of for Entrepreneurs. Our fourth guest is currently a Senior Manager Solution Consultant at ServiceNow, where he is the primary consulting owner of customers in ASEAN. Over the last 14 years, Kokmun has been successfully helping enterprises elevate their digital experiences for employees and customers in various domains, service management and security operations. Last but never least, our panel moderator, Aadarsh Baijal, is a partner based in Bain and Company Singapore office. Aadarsh is an expert in the firm's strategy and digital practice, with deep experience in the financial services, technology, and agri-business vertical. I'm going to ask for a more powerful, jam-packed lineup of speakers to discuss this recalibration of our financial services age of the normal. If you have any questions for the panel, once again, do not be shy. Don't start now. Please post in the chat box or in the comment section below. All right. Aadarsh, I'm sure the audience is very eager to hear and learn from this panel. So whenever you are ready, you take it away.
Thank you, Myra. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure to be here with such a distinguished panel. Maybe just to kick it off, a few comments from my side. As Myra mentioned, we have recently launched our flagship annual research together with Google and Temasek called The Economy on the state of the digital economy in Southeast Asia. As some of you may have seen in our findings this year, we have seen a real resurgence in the digital economy this year. We estimate the total economy is about 170 billion in GMV, on track to reach up to $1 billion by 2030. We found that the surge of adoption seen since the start of the pandemic last year is here to stay, both on the consumer side and the merchant side. This has also been a record year for investments, with almost $11.5 billion of deal activity just in the first half, putting it on par with the full year of deal value last year. As Myra mentioned, we've seen a huge growth on the merchant side of things, and it's a pretty exciting time for digital financial services. So maybe I kick it off with a question to all of our panelists. As you reflect on this past year, what a whirlwind of a year it has been. The rapid growth of the region's internet economy together with the COVID pandemic. What are your biggest takeaways on the region's digital economy? Maybe I start, Suhail, with you on what are your takeaways from this past year?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Aadarsh. From my perspective, yeah, I mean, the pandemic, over the last 2 years, right? definitely has accelerated the internet economy. I mean, when I talk about acceleration, I'm saying anything between 5 to 10 years, right? And if we step back and analyze this a bit, my take is key to this acceleration is really about adoption. Those that are already on the internet economy have increased their usage on a day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis. But more importantly, like what we see or what I see, those who have been extremely resistant in the past, we see them being converted. Adoption is definitely at all-time high. I mean, our statistics, our number shows us that adoption is definitely at all-time high. To add on to that, right, some trends that we see, right? All of us know, all of us who are here probably know this, right? Online shopping has seen a surge. More than a third of digital service users are new to online shopping, and they have embraced this and they are on the wagon. The other is, of course, things like food delivery, very steep uptrend. And I understand, right? Google's forecast, if my memory holds me right, it's about USD 8 billion in Southeast Asia by 2025 as an industry. And the other that we see booming is things like streaming, home streaming and entertainment, right? The case in point is Netflix, right? They have seen 16 million new subscribers. And likewise, things like what all of us are doing now, working from home, right? That too, we see a boom, right? In Maybank, where I come from, right? We see similar trends, right? As at May 2021, our online retail transactions on our digital platform grew by 51% year on year, right? We see customers' preference towards being served online all the time, yeah? And this is growing on a day-to-day basis. And likewise, transactions like QR Pay, right, via mobile grew by 200%, meaning it just emphasizes the fact that the society as a whole, the economy as a whole, is an accelerated pace in moving themselves towards cashless transactions. Yeah. Similarly, businesses and SMEs likewise, right? We see them equally positive, embracing digital means. In Maybank, from February this year alone, we had about 100,000 new accounts open digital online, and we see this growing. Yeah. So to sum this up, right, with this surge in adoption, right, I would reckon that the demand for digital and internet services will increase, right, will continuously increase, with consumers or businesses choosing three distinctive characters of that. Yeah, one is, of course, they want speed. The other is, of course, convenience, right? Give them that agility that they're looking for. And, but this needs to be packaged, coupled with giving them continuous assurance that it's all secure in a secure environment. Yeah. So we see that, really in the upward trend. Thanks.
Thanks, Suhail. Yeah, it's an exciting time, as you said, 5-10 years acceleration. Maybe coming to Kochman, you next. So what's your reflections on the past year?
I couldn't say it better than Suhail. Yeah, I think if I can split the observation into two parts, right? From a consumer standpoint, I think for the past 2 years, it has been life-changing to say the least. I think technology has actually changed the life of so many people, not just helping them keep sane over the past 2 years when they're stuck at home, but at the same time, I think technology has also helped save a lot of life in the sense of providing job opportunities to workers in the gig economy, like what Suhail was saying, talking about. Food delivery has seen a tremendous adoption, tremendous uptake, and so on and so forth. So I think that by itself is I absolutely agree to what Suhail has mentioned. It accelerated the technology adoption by 5 to 10 years at least. But from the provider standpoint, I think that poses a whole lot of new challenges as well. On top of having to be extremely convenient, having to be extremely competitive in terms of price, having to be extremely secure for the users as well. I think one thing that has been apparent to ServiceNow or our customers has been the ability to differentiate on service. Right? There can only so much the providers can actually compete when it comes to price. So having the ability to compete on service is something that is actually becoming more and more apparent. And we as a company, we see that a lot more providers are actually putting a lot more emphasis and focus on those areas.
Yeah, it's a great point. Maybe coming to you next, Saify, what did you think from the past year?
Aadarsh, thank you firstly for having us on this panel, and especially for publishing the economy report with Google and Temasek since 2016. It certainly has really driven a lot of the decisions we've made at Pertama Digital as we build some impactful solutions for the citizens of Malaysia. Now, from our perspective, it's certainly the right place and time to be in the business of digitalization. Okay, the world is experiencing a flight to digital, and Southeast Asia is at the heart of it. And this has been spurred, of course, by the pandemic and the movement restrictions that followed very closely after. Now that smartphone ownership is basically universal in most of the countries here in Southeast Asia, our people are beginning to develop new ways of doing things and getting things done in their day-to-day lives. And this is a chance for us to enable them with digital solutions like e-payments and virtual communication. So our biggest takeaway here at Pertama Digital has been that for most of our consumers, digital right now is merely an alternative and not yet the default. Okay, and we see this when movement restriction orders are lifted and you straight away see rush hour traffic returning. Okay, you may have employees that are used to working from home, but maybe employers are not ready yet. You also see businesses, in both urban and rural areas that don't actively promote digital payments, and you start to see how cash is still king, in this part of the world. So in summary, from our perspective, this flight to digital is fragile, and if the people are not kept at the center of digital products being developed by businesses like ours, then these great opportunities could be missed.
A great point. Maybe coming to you, Jojo, you're starting a whole new venture. So, thoughts on the past year?
Yeah, I think if you summarize everything that Suhail, KM, and Saify had mentioned, probably that's it, right? So I'd like to share from perspective from the Philippines, for example, from our organization. Maybe on top of what has been said, adoption is definitely something that is unprecedented. The levels of people from different classes of the society are actually adopting to some digital means, and the pandemic had done had helped do that. But I think the more focus that we are looking at is on what you said earlier about the investments that have been put into ASEAN, which is going to be even much bigger than what we had last year, is the introduction of a lot of innovations, right? A lot of innovations, not only on the fintech, health tech, regulatory tech, or edutech. And all of this are basically contributing to the consolidation of the behavior of the consumer as they adopt. They link one industry to the other. And in the middle of all of that is always the financial services, right? So I think there are more problems being solved by innovation. They're definitely bringing people to an experience of really the new normal, where it's easy to order, easy to get to the hospital, when you're feeling bad. It's easy to go to school, even though you're not enrolled physically to go to another school. So all of these things that are happening, and this is basically being incentivized even by the influx of foreign investors into the ASEAN, is I think a major takeaway. But to KM's point earlier, it enhances the VUCA part of our of what's happening. The VUCA is it will continue to be volatile. It will continue to be uncertain. It will continue to be complex and ambiguous. And I think by getting into all of this new type of VUCA ecosystem, it will make it a lot more challenging to the operators, to the players to remain firm with their business models and actually be able to survive the onslaught of adoption, the onslaught of new technologies coming in, and so it's both bad and good. But the point is that this is the new normal. This is the never normal. It's a change that probably we asked for, and now that we have it, we have to contend with how we're going to sustain what we have introduced this during this in the pandemic, and sustain it so that it will continuously have an impact on society, continuously improve the economy of emerging markets or countries, right? So.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and maybe building on the VUCA point and some of the comments made earlier around consumer, their experience on digital and why they are adopting. One of the things that we found is digital consumption is now deeply embedded as a way of life, right, in terms of the growth of adoption. But the expectations of customers are constantly escalating. One of the aspects of what you mentioned, Jojo, is that the consumer expectations particularly on the digital experience is escalating every few months. And would love to get thoughts on how are businesses keeping up? How do you actually contend with not only delivering a great experience and having a good speed, but basically staying agile by coming up with new benchmarks every few months. Maybe we'd love to start with you, Gokman, on how do providers work with you on keeping up with their consumers?
And thanks for that, Aadarsh. I mean, there's so many stories that we can tell. But one that really comes to mind, it is actually with a bank in New Zealand called Kiwibank. For those of you who are not familiar with Kiwibank, it's actually state-owned. It's relatively new. It's about 20 years old, and it has got the most amount of branches in the whole of New Zealand. About 260 branches, if I remember correctly. It's got 2,000 over employees, and it's got slightly more than 1 million customers countrywide. What happened is, as with most banks, Kiwibank is not built for pandemic scenarios, right? No banks in the world is actually built to cater for loan deferments, moratorium, and all of those things, right? So what happened is when the pandemic hit, they went into lockdown, and what happened was their customers can't actually walk into branches as they used to anymore. And frontliners can't actually go serve the customers as well. So what they did was they actually came to ServiceNow, and we actually did what they call a customer care service online portal for them within 4 days. We talked about Agile earlier, right? There's no point in spending a month when the pandemic is over before the technology is up. So what they did was they used 4 days to actually create this interaction channels that actually funnels all the interactions from the customer to the backend staff. And what that happens was that within the first few weeks, there were close to about 20,000 interactions being logged, and that actually transformed the whole perception of the bank altogether. Not only that it increases the efficiency of people from the bank using the system and serving the customers, but it also provides a whole new different perception of how consumers actually look at the bank. Remember I talked about earlier that key differentiation here is service, right? So this is actually a very good example of how some of the other providers actually leverage on ServiceNow technology to achieve that. I'll probably pause here before I start sounding like a product pitch, but I'll pass the floor back to you, Aadarsh.
4 days is incredible. That is amazing. Maybe Saify, what your thoughts? How are governments thinking about this? Shift in what customers expect in interactions with the government as well, I guess now on every domain.
Yeah, so our experience is very different from what an organization like ServiceNow perhaps have. Pertama Digital is a problem-led organization, right? So this simply means that we seek to understand challenges faced by a large group of citizens, and then we find the best ways to solve them. And it just happens to be that in this day and age, the most cost-effective way to deliver impactful solutions is through digital solutions, right? And at the moment, we are focusing on solutions that enhance how the citizens engage with their government. Okay? And for us, our success stems from our holistic approach. So our solutions, they meet the needs of not just a member of public, but also the government officers and the agencies that they work for, right? All these stakeholders need to be tied together, and all their needs need to be met in order for a solution to be successful. So as a business, we digitalize payments, right? We digitalize all kinds of payments to the government or around in the public sector. We automate government agency workflows to improve their service delivery, and we also optimize how the government communicates with individual citizens via instant messaging. And in the course of our business, we get to witness, just as you said, firsthand how high the expectations are these days from the public, especially when it comes to government services, right? And largely, these expectations are driven by the otherwise wonderful experiences that we all have from apps that come up of Silicon Valley. We expect everything to be beautiful, to be fast, to be fun, and to be free. Okay. And at the same time, the pandemic has then given us an unprecedented opportunity because it has forced millions of Malaysians to give e-government services a try. Because so many government offices have been closed during MCO and movement restriction orders. So now the tricky part is to not let the ball drop. All right. And you can see that across the world, going digital isn't always a runaway success. So last week, big news out of the US is that N26, which is one of Europe's largest digital banks, pulled out of North America after just 2 years of operations, right? And this week, we've had a leading bank in Singapore experience major internet banking disruptions. Yeah. I think it would have affected you as well. And even here in Malaysia, we've had complaints in the public domain about certain government apps and their usability. So what I'm saying here is that together, the private sector, we need to strive to maintain public confidence in the digital way of life. Now that we've been given a silver platter, people have been forced to go digital, we need to keep them digital, right? And what we see is that in our conversations with the government, we have to drive messages to them that in order for the public services to go digital successfully, right, we must make sure the value proposition to all stakeholders is super strong. Okay, you can have an ugly app, right? As long as it really solves a big problem and it solves a big pain, then adoption will be great, right? And we have to always think positively about how we strive to meet these heightened expectations, right? And I'm glad to say that the feedback from the public sector, at least here in Malaysia, has been very positive.
Fantastic. Good. Let's dive into the digital financial services opportunity now. It's been fueling the growth of the internet economy. It's one of the most exciting verticals from an investment perspective as well. Maybe starting with you, Suhail, how is Maybank thinking about your transformation, and where do you want to go after this opportunity?
Thank you, Aadarsh. I mean, very interesting. Maybank, we have always been in the forefront of digital. I mean, for the longest time, yeah. And with our recent 5-year strategy moving forward, we call it M25. It's all about being pervasively digital, where we are very much centered on our customers, right? We begin with the customers. It's all about the customer's persona, and that's guided by our core principles of trust, experience, and resilience. Yeah. This is driven by 3 key outcomes. Yeah. The first being customer acquisition, importantly via digital means, digital onboarding. Yeah. That is, it has to be truly seamless, right? And that's what drives us. Yeah. We're very focused with that. Happy to share that we are the first bank in Malaysia to offer eKYC end-to-end, right, on onboarding customers. And the first to offer a Sharia compliant e-wallet. Maybank in Malaysia, we're very big with Islamic banking. Yeah. So we were the first to offer Sharia compliant e-wallet. So we see the adoption and the embracing of these initiatives that we have put on place as a foundation. It's huge. Yeah. The second is about growing our, I would say, digital proposition. Yeah. What does this mean? This is not just about making a manual process available on a digital platform. It's about really re-engineering, rethinking end-to-end, right, the entire process, where we build, we have things like RPA, bots in between to automate processes, right? A case in point is our digital retail loan, digital retail loan that we launched sometime last year, right? End-to-end, it's fully straight through. A wee bit of machine learning and artificial intelligence built in to ensure that we can model the analysis, right? So customers can apply for a digital loan and get it approved and the money disbursed into the account in less than 10 minutes. Provided your documentations are in order, you get that all, within 10 minutes, right? In the past, it probably take us a week, maybe more than that, right? And today, and that served us well, right? Because a lot of SMEs in this current environment, right, they need a lot of assistance, such assistance, yeah. So that served us very well, yeah. The third piece is about our digital. It's on our digital proposition, right? It's about how do we go beyond banking. Yeah, it's not just about banking anymore, right? So with that in mind, sometime late last year, we launched our new mobile banking app. We call it May, right? It's not just a banking app, right? It's truly a lifestyle app, right? And what we are seeing is that the interaction with our customers have significantly increased. We see their presence on our app. The stay time on our app has significantly increased as well. They use our app to buy things like, as an example, right? Buy movie tickets, order food. We have a platform where end to end, we can actually order food and have that delivered to your premises. Yeah. And the more sexy stuff is really about even financial planning, right? Within the app, you can actually plan your finances, have things like a savings campaign and everything else within you, your family, your friends, and everything else, right? And you have the opportunity to track your finances. So really helps in this current times. Yeah. Why? Our intention is this, right? Our digital solution will or must not just provide financial services or be a means of purely undertaking banking transactions or payments. It must include or encompass other lifestyle or complementary features, right, that supports our customers in their day-to-day activities, right? It has to be encompassing. Like ultimately, what we want is this, yeah. We want to be able to ensure financial inclusion by reaching out to the underserved and the unserved segments by providing them, I must say, quality access to financial solutions. Yeah. This is indeed true to our vision of humanizing financial services. Yeah, that's how we see the overall digital financial services for the Maybank Group. Thanks, Aadarsh.
That's great, and a number of innovations in a short time. But I want to pick up on the last one around serving the underserved, and would love to bring Jojo into this conversation. What are the opportunities that you are seeing in GOtyme, Jojo? Is it on the underserved? Is it broader?
Yeah, thanks, Aadarsh. Well, I think the institution of a new category in the Philippines by the Central Bank of the Philippines of a new banking category, which is a digital bank, actually specifically requires us, all the 6 companies that have approved to be digital banks, it requires us to really, create the impetus by which the underserved or the underbanked will really be addressed. The requirements for bringing them to the mainstream financial services will have to be addressed. So that's already a given. I think our metric is that at the end of the operations, be it 5 years, is that we should have at least contributed to the emancipation of the unbanked, so to speak. But consistent with what I mentioned earlier, the opportunities really lie on the level of adoption that everybody has really reached in terms of appreciating and understanding why they really need to be in the mainstream of financial services, right? It's one thing to say that, we will bank the unbanked, but, sometimes when you bank them, they don't know what to do with, but when they're banked, right? So sometimes you bank people who are not really bankable because they don't have money to put in savings, for example. So the objective really is to consolidate what the fintechs have really achieved so far, new types of services, new problem solved, or new pain points addressed relative to the unbanked, basically making full use of their power to be banked, right? So this takes care of giving them livelihoods, and the only way you can give them livelihoods, create opportunities for them to borrow money, and then when they borrow money and then create their own businesses and livelihoods, you have to give them support mechanism by which they can really succeed in their businesses. All of these things are opportunities, and we're fortunate that the pandemic has really created a lot of landscape by which they can probably operate successfully, right? So it's not necessary for us, for GoTyme, to just zero in on the digitizing everybody. I think it's going to be approached on a hybrid way. Cash is still king to most of these underbanked and unbanked. So we need to find a way by which we can manage the behavior towards being digitized and being successful in their businesses, and also using cash that they will digitize so that they make everything more efficient for them to be more successful. So the omni-channel strategies that are now coming out, the TikToks, social commerce on TikTok, social commerce on YouTube, social commerce on Viber. The Philippines, I think the Filipinos are well respected for being the highest user of the internet online, right? About 11 hours a day. Filipinos go to the internet 11 hours a day, and you can just maximize and find out what they use that time for, 11 hours a day, and find ways by which DFS can have an impact on that. So it's both it's both tuition fee that we've paid to make them aware of how easy it is now to move money, how easy it is now to borrow money, how easy it is now to pay or pay your loans, and we incorporate this into this the setup that the pandemic had provided us, which is an omni-channel approach, offline and online going together. Offline is nowhere to go. Offline is here to stay, right? So in GoTyme, our plan is to really make all of these mom and pop shops be at some point in time be capable of doing financial transactions, right? You go queue to a supermarket and you will see that the cashiers can actually also punch the food or the goods that you buy, but they'll also be able to do financial transactions. So the biggest opportunity for us really to democratize the financial industry, services industry in the country. And what better way to do that with a conglomerate that we are in, which is one of the biggest in the Philippines. We have interests in airline. We have the biggest airline company in the country. We have one of the biggest snack manufacturing company in the country. We have a huge retail footprint. We have about 55 malls, shopping malls, and about 35, 37, residences and a property development company. We have a bank also. And so we are going to take advantage of all of these critical aspects of how we have managed ecosystems, and then how we have continuously built businesses to grow the economy of the country. And of course, we're bringing in Time Bank of South Africa to allow us to get a peek and use innovations that have been proven successful in South Africa.
Exciting times. Would love to talk a little bit about the small business side of things, or merchant side of things. As we were talking about in the introduction of the panel, that has been a highlight of the story over the past year. And I remember for many years prior to this, we have been talking about how these small businesses need to be brought online, and there's a lot of inertia and difficulty. But it seems like there was a tipping point given the pandemic. So I'd love to get the thoughts on that. Maybe starting with you, Saify, on how do you see this evolving in Malaysia? What are the biggest opportunities to serve the merchant segment?
The first thing I want to get out of the way is that entrepreneurship has evolved thanks to the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, it was, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, entrepreneurship was about a desire become, the best that one can be, or to achieve certain levels of status or recognition and so on. Now, because of the pandemic, so many people have turned to entrepreneurship because of the need to make ends meet and to provide for the families and to pay for school fees and whatnot. So we are seeing a lot of entrepreneurs come into the fold that otherwise would not choose entrepreneurship as their first choice. Okay? So with that in mind, some of the observations that we are making around the digitalization of micro SMEs is that first and foremost, cash is still king. Okay, there are close to no small merchants here in Malaysia that we have come across through our engagement with the market that actually prefer e-payments versus cash. Okay, and that's because digital financial services, they tend to favor the consumers and not the merchants. For example, when you make a cashless payment to a small vendor, she may only receive or have access to the funds a few days later because of the business models that e-wallet supply, right? And this is despite the technology being available for these funds to be instantly available to the sellers. So on that note, from our perspective, digital financial services needs to be developed to better meet the needs of all stakeholders. That's the first one. The second is that MSMEs themselves, they need to learn how to diversify. There are lucrative gaps in the market that MSMEs could supply, but they are currently underserved. So, for example, we see a healthy participation or digital participation in the food and beverage sector, but less so further up the supply chain when it comes to, say, the manufacture and supply of containers or plastic bags or ingredients, or even right up from the agricultural sector and supplying into the F&B market. Third, we feel that entrepreneurs, especially these entrepreneurs who are not entrepreneurs by choice, need to be left to focus on making an income and not be overcome by the administrative responsibilities of operating a business. So we need to make entrepreneurship attractive and remove the red tape through digitalization. And that's something Pertama Digital is working with public agencies to do. And so with a holistic approach to DFS by providers like ourselves and the rest of you, I think we can solve some of these problems for MSMEs together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to shift to a little bit talking about some of the enablers as we look ahead, and we've touched upon a few of them. But we said as we look over the next 10 years, there are a number of things that we need to still address so that the digital economy continues to thrive. This includes one of the big topics that has been around for the last few years on talent. So we still need to solve lots of talent issues, whether it's capability development, whether it's how the workforce itself is evolving with part-time work. It also includes some new topics such as data, both infrastructure and regulations. It includes sustainability in the form of ESG, as well as inclusion to make sure that we don't leave people behind. So would love to get thoughts on a few of those topics, and maybe I'll start, Cockman, with you on the talent equation or any of the other enablers. What are your views on how well companies are prepared to kind of navigate the shifts here, and how do they keep up? How do you keep up maybe within ServiceNow? How do you help others?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Aadarsh. I think the shift is real, right? I mean, it has become, it has come to a point where the employees has now options to whether or not I want to travel and get stuck in traffic for an hour to get into the office versus being at the comfort of my own home, walking, 2 steps away from my bed and start working. So that has actually kind of changed the dynamics of employment quite a fair bit in our point of view. And we've actually seen this, across a lot of our different customers, across different segments, across different countries as well. Like before, I just want to give you an example of a bank, right? Of an international bank that operates majority in Malaysia and Singapore. So they've got about 90,000 employees globally, and they've been a long-time ServiceNow customer that have been using us quite a fair bit. But what had happened was when COVID hit, what they wanted to do was actually to use this flexibility and market it as a differentiation for the bank, right? In order to attract talent. So it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter, where you're based, it doesn't matter where you work. You're more than welcome to come work for us if we identify you as a talent, right? But in order to do that, there are a number of processes that needs to be in place, especially when that person doesn't really fancy going into the office, right? So one of the things that they have actually done was that, or rather one of the regulations that they have is that all employees that are working from home need to actually sign a third-party declaration form. And a third-party declaration form is traditionally pen and paper. It's traditionally physical. So what they did was, again, to Suhail's point earlier, not just digitizing what is manual, but really to kind of reinvent or re-engineer the process altogether. And they did that on the ServiceNow platform. And that has actually saved everybody hundreds of hours from submission of the form to actually processing of the form to eventually holding it to legal and compliance and say that, hey, you know what, these guys have actually are actually permitted to actually work from home. So that is just one of the many examples that I would like to share on this forum.
But maybe good to get your thoughts, Suhail, on how are you managing the talent shifts or any of the other enablers, be it data or ESG or inclusion.
Sure. For Maybank, right, the workspace of the future, the way we are designing it or we have designed it is very people-centric, right? What does that mean? I mean, note that the workspace calls for unprecedented change due to invasion of technology, but technology, like we all know, doesn't define the workplace. I know it enables it. The people define it, right? We believe people remain the key to unlocking and charting new pathways, and we strive to reimagine the workspace that creates equal collaboration. I know between, like KM said, between those working digitally and those working on site. How do you bridge that and bring that together? And you need that. You need that for the gig economy. You need them for the new norm, so to speak. Yeah. Post-pandemic included, right? But the other interesting bit, Aadarsh, that you mentioned with reference to data, right? The way we see data, I mean, it's definitely the currency of the future. I must say that. But there are some critical challenges that collectively we need to probably think through and achieve the kind of maturity that we want to achieve for the nation. Yeah, one is things like data sovereignty. Right? As more and more data shift to cloud or outside the country border, the question is, in a dispute or when it comes to the crunch, who has control over that data, right? It's still a very fine line. How do we actually manage that, right? And also the issue of trust and control over potential data breach or data leak, right? Until that happens, no one sees this, but when it happens, it could have a very severe impact to the sovereign of a country as well. Yeah, that's one. The other is we all come from organizations which have legacy data systems, and as we build new platforms, we have new digital systems. How do you bridge this gap? How do you bring the data into a central lake? You have a central data dictionary. How do you harmonize this, and how you democratize this? And how do you build a platform so that the users, the talent in your organization are going to be able to harness the data and bring about meaningful interpretation of the data? I think that while some organizations may have had a step forward in a big way, but I think a lot of us could be actually in an infancy stage and moving into that direction. Yeah. So for us in Maybank, our thought is this, right? How do we address this? One is we will always take a customer first approach, assess everything we do from a customer perspective, whether we'll risk exposing our customers' record by adopting that particular infrastructure, right? And how do we mitigate or eliminate this risk? I think that's important, yeah. And how do we actually move towards an enterprise-wide infrastructure solution? So what we have is an established or enterprise architecture or design, so to speak, that hopes to address some of these concerns, right? one that's being built for the future, as well as to, I mean, like all of us know, like, you want to invest and ensure that investment can actually, that infrastructure can outlast the investment line, so to speak. Yeah. I think sometimes that's really what the challenge is. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Jojo, what your views on as a disruptor on data or other enablers?
Yeah, well, on the financial inclusion, I think there's a lot of opportunities that we can tackle, but there must be a reason why we still continue to talk about inclusion and not address the problem of inclusion. And this falls right in the middle of this VUCA, uh, you know, uh, VUCA ecosystem where there's a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty and complexity in managing the unbanked. Right, the Central Bank of the Philippines have earmarked a goal of having 70% of the population really having a bank account or a transaction account that's used by 2023, and also making sure that by 2023 as well, at least 50% of all retail payments and retail transactions will be digital. I think that's a very, very important guidance that we have. The important thing is for us to be able to do it. While this is really really new, we are working hand in hand and very very deliberately with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or the Central Bank of the Philippines, and we learn together. We test, we put things on sandbox and really appreciate what needs to be done, because the complexity is really for the unbanked to understand what is it that they're going to receive from all of these digital banks, right? So um, it's no longer going to be an excuse to say that we tried our best and still Filipino population is still 70% unbanked. So I think the collaboration with the central bank will allow us to give to understand and execute strategies realistically with a similar objective in mind. And across all of these initiatives, in managing the expectations, managing the unbanked, so that they will become part of mainstream financial services, now digital financial services, is data, right? So a lot of complexity is there. You don't know, what types of breaches or cybersecurity problems we'll be encountering. Maybe as we speak now, as we have our own conferences, all of the cybersecurity attackers are also in the same conferences, finding out, what they can do to move forward and basically, get away with attacking the instances that we create. So data is very important for us, not only in terms of making sure that it's transparent, that the customer is able to use it with consent, and that it's really something that is also able to help us from a marketing perspective, so that we understand who our customers will really be, and on the basis of predicting their behavior to match our products and services, we'll be able to do to manage data in that manner, specifically addressing the unbanked. So this is really a combination of objectives. How do you manage data in such a way that you're able to really penetrate the base of the pyramid? And to our point, that's the biggest challenge that's on the table for all of the digital banks in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it's still a lot of work to be done to solve it as well. Saify, what are your thoughts on which of these enablers kind of the top of mind for you between talent, data, ESG, or inclusion? You think about it.
So from our perspective, inclusion and talent are very closely linked. So in contrast to the Philippines, Malaysia has a high rate of bank account ownership, and more than 90% of Malaysians have a bank account. So being unbanked is not an issue, but underbanked it certainly is. Instead, here in Malaysia, we start to see that there's low utilization of existing digital financial services. For example, we have a brilliant national payment QR network called Do It Now. But when you talk to an MSME online and they request for payment, they'll still send you a screenshot of their Maybank app with the account number instead of just sending you a Do It Now screenshot, right? So this is where talent comes in. because at Pertama Digital, we are bringing together patriotic individuals that are willing to go down to the ground and start to really understand what the audience is like, right? It is not about designing the most fancy app with nice graphics or animation. It's actually about product market fit. And in order to actually drive inclusion, what we need to do is we need to go and understand what their lives are like, what are their priorities, what are their needs, their family structures, their dependencies, and only then can we start to design solutions that really fit for them. So that's what we have done. And the digital banking proposition that we have made is not just about targeting certain rural areas or certain socioeconomic groups like the B40s. These words get thrown around a lot, but we are going further than that. We are doing things like promoting age-appropriate banking, right? So that we protect the seniors from scams and at the same time prepare the youth with good financial habits before they hit the workforce. Okay, and we are also creating Islamic digital products, right? Which take in things like blended finance, so a mix of wakaf, a mix of zakat, and finance in order to make access to financial services easier for certain groups. And we are sort of hyper digitalizing the shared risk and reward of investing or extending finances to certain businesses. Another thing that we're doing, and something that I'm really against, is we don't do any things like BNPL. And we are our proposition is all about productive finance, which is helping people to earn an income and make ends meet. Okay, so I think if this is the kind of talent that you attract to the organization, then you have a strong chance of driving financial inclusion here in like Malaysia and beyond.
Yep. No, I think it's interesting you bring up BNPL because even though that's the rage right now, we did some primary research in Malaysia recently where we asked actually not the underbanked in the sense of low income, but underbanked in the sense of youth segment, and the top factor or the top use case that they came back with was actually personal financial management and expense management. So there's a lot of other areas that are needs that are quite valuable to address.
I was using a e-commerce app a while ago, and it offered me financing on a 10 ringgit purchase, right? Yeah. So these are the kind of things that perhaps 15 years ago I would have made a mistake with.
Excellent. Okay, good. So I'd love to look ahead now into the future. So imagine we are in 2026, 5 years out, and would love to get each of you to think about what the state of the digital economy would look like, in particular the digital financial services landscape. And any thoughts that come top of mind to you, whether it's an innovation on competitive intensity, on how we're doing on things like inclusion and data, whatever comes top of mind for you. So what are your top of mind thoughts to describe what 2026 would look like for Malaysia or the region's digital financial services economy? Maybe we'll start, Jojo, with you, and then hear from each one of us.
Yeah, I think by 2026, there will be fewer bank branches. Not only from the digital banks or the or the new category of banks, but from the brick and mortar banks as well, right? So they'll probably find better use for their branches for other use cases, right? So, and there's going to be also and I think the most successful bank will be a technology company, right? So a technology company which is able to do open finance and basically get all of these services across, where data is shared across all bank account holders, and open finance stages the play where it's very, very highly personalized. Individuals or the unbanked, for example, will be banked by 2026, and when they're banked, what I'm seeing is that they can actually get their own financial product according to their requirements, right? They will have savings account that will be, time, time bound and time based relative to the interest that they're going to get it. They will be able to get loans according to their requirements that will make them really, get into different types of businesses. They'll be able to have access to lending to funds to set up their own. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for new businesses across different various industries. So I think it's going to be still going to be complex. There's going to be still a lot of issues on cybersecurity, but probably more manageable. But I guess it will. I think by 2026 it will really be a look towards better economies for different countries, particularly those who are emerging. There's going to be probably thousands and thousands of unicorns on the fintech side, on the banking side, but they are all embedded into the lifestyle and in the behavior of individuals and their customers. But I still think that there's going to be a lot of volatility and complexities, but we should be in a better place during that time.
Excellent. I like your comment on most successful bank will be a tech company. I worked recently with a stock exchange, and it's a tech company. There's not 90% of everybody in the exchange is basically a technologist. It's all automated, and it just shifted over a couple of decades. That it's amazing to see. Take that and apply it to a traditional retail bank, and fast forward 5-10 years and look quite different. Cockburn, what are your thoughts? 2026.
I agree to what Jojo has mentioned. I think what we'll see is actually fewer banks. If I look at where I am right now as a consumer, I unlock my phone and I probably have 6-7 different e-wallets on my phone right now. I think over the next 5 years there will be some level of consolidation. I think there will be probably the bigger e-wallets will probably absorb the smaller ones potentially. I think there will be a consolidation of a clear winner in terms of e-wallet as well as digital finance. And I think the larger, the more traditional banks, so like Maybank, for example, I think they will be pivoting towards a lot more lifestyle-focused applications, right? Like just what Suhail mentioned, I can actually go to May right now to buy a movie ticket, for example. But I think over the next 5 years, that capability is going to expand even further. Maybe I can even buy a car through the app in the future, right? So I think that is probably where I see the next 5 years going to be like.
Yeah, very big opportunities still to go. I think we all, despite the dramatic changes we are seeing, actually, digital economy is still a fraction of the overall economy. Still a long way to go.
Yep.
Maybe Saify coming to you next.
Okay, so I predict that digital financial services in this region in Southeast Asia is going to look very different from what we are seeing currently, because most of the current services that we have are very similar or to a certain extent adaptations of products that were launched in more developed markets. So I think over the next for Southeast Asia, because we are unique with so many cultures, so many different languages, and we are relatively very close together in one small geographical area. And I think that we will execute digital financial services in a way that no one from outside Southeast Asia can actually do for us, because we know ourselves best. That's the first thing I want to say. I would go on to say also that because of the pandemic, we are also going to evolve our idea of what success actually is. And I think digital financial services are going to be more supportive of building social protections and driving socio-economic mobility, because it's in everyone's interest, not just those at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And last but not least, I also think that we will have a much more transparent and equitable financial sector that is inspired by decentralized finance, but still offering the protections of a regulated environment. Because most of us, being citizens of a country, want to have those protections that regulation affords. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what 2026 looks like on our follow-up call.
Yeah, I think a very important point that you made, Saify, that we need solutions for and innovations for Southeast Asia. Actually, already I would say we've kind of gone past the first generation of digital financial services products, which was trying to say, what do we see in the offline world and how do we bring it online, to let's just innovate for online. So a lot of the new products are actually built for digital, and you don't see the equivalence offline. And I think, as you said, it's still a lot of copy pasting from seeing things around the world, but we're starting to see the innovation which is built for Southeast Asia and quite unique there. Excellent. Suhail, coming to you next. What do you think?
Let me start by saying this, right? I agree with you. I agree with Jojo. Banks are going to be tech companies, right? And the most successful bank will be a highly technological organization who have embraced, coupled with things like 5G, quantum computing. What else? Yeah, and I think the opportunities are immense. I mean, fantastic. Yeah, that's one. The other is, I think, because of all of this evolution and growth, banks will become very nimble, right? I mean, they know what their liabilities are. They know what the customer's assets are. They'll find ways to bridge them and offer products and services, understanding the customer true to the nature of the customer. They truly understand the anthropology of the customer, right? And to be able to offer design and offer services that are meant for that specific customer. It'll come down to that level, yeah. But moving away from that and bringing that down to our day-to-day lives, I think one thing is we will definitely move into a truly cashless society, right? Saify, whilst you say that we are cash-centric, whilst I can agree in some areas, but I think with QRP and everything else, there'll come a point of time that we'll have the ability to move around without our wallets, right? But not without our mobile phones.
Yeah.
Right? We'll definitely get there. The other is the mobile phones by itself, I think, will be a lot more integrated into wearables, not a physically separated device. Yeah, and this is key, as digital will need to evolve to be multi-device, multi-sensory, and more intrinsic in our lives. Last but not least, very quickly, I in the interest of time, I think IoT, the Internet of Things, will become mainstream. Yeah, transactions. I wouldn't be surprised. Even today, it's already happening, right? Where transactions will be initiated by a device rather than a human, right? This is really, if we all collectively embrace technology, I think that's the way it will move. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Very good comments from the panel. This brings us to the close of our discussion of never normal, which is a great phrase to describe the journey on digital. I want to say a big thank you to all of our panelists, Saify, KM, and Jojo, Suhail. Thank you so much for your comments and insights. It's been great connecting with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aadarsh. And guys, I hope you have enjoyed the industry panel discussion of the Digital Finance BizCon breakout track.